Okay, well, it's 6 o'clock on Monday evening. Welcome, everybody, to Beaver Politics. This is Indigenous Matters, and this evening I'm coming to you from the Treaty 6 territory and the homelands of the Métis Nation and the Métis people who've resided in these lands. The First Nations have been here since time immemorial. These have been the homelands of the Cree, the Dene, the Sioux, the Stony, some Soto folks are in these lands as well. So I welcome you all to our program. And tonight we're going to be having our special guest, Small Boy Marie. She is an esteemed elder and has so much knowledge and wisdom to share with us. She has a political science background, and I've invited her today to talk with us about the history of treaties, the intent of treaties from our Indigenous perspective, the importance of treaties in the Canadian context, and how we're all treaty people and what we can all do in our role as treaty people. So, without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Marie Smallboy. Welcome, my friend.
Hi, I'd like to address them in our language before I begin. It's just I like it when I can address their spirits as well. It kind of helps me move through my discussions. Tatamskat no kahkio tohtawik. Mumsta he moikinos. Magainanas kumtaga kisto entona megam maki ko soktiks ko na tansami sin strukta makiana o pahamaton. Maga ko witista ani sto ko uskaya tan strukta tan sam kiano pets now ekis be sona mato ja hamma piks ko no tansi sin strukta pahamaton. And I'll just quickly translate. I want to thank you all for coming to share our space, our sacred space. Every space is sacred, and I'm grateful that we have the search for our truth, our own ancestral truths about how we understood the treaty from our perspective. And it's been a long journey for me. I started doing mine way back in the day, and it was my frustration with the English version that actually got me on my trail. And I'm here today to share with you what I have come up with as an old person, and to begin a journey. With those of you who want to continue learning, I mean, every day we learn something new every day. And to begin with, I want to say that I have been traveling the many lives throughout TikTok land. And it's been quite a brutal journey, I must say. But I'm hopeful because some of the rooms I do go into, I find there's some kind of understanding that there's something more to our treaty than just the written text. So I do have a video that I kind of slapped together with PowerPoint. It's in my profile. And that's the basis of my discussions on our understanding of the treaty. I in that presentation, I speak about how we understood, how we identified what the words we use to each other. When the old people talk, you'll often hear those three words. And when they're talking about them, they put them into context. So the first one is I live in Wetaskiwin. Everybody calls it Wetaskiwin. My cars cost less than Wetaskiwin, but it's Wetaskiwin. That's the correct term to say it's the colonial being calls it Peace Hills, but when you break the word down in our language, it means peacefully arranging to coexist in peace. Well, it's a sacred undertaking that we take to coexist in peace. So we Wetaskiwin is not only a term that comes lightly to our thought processes. It's a sacred. It's a law, because when we do it's a sacred law. That it's sanctioned by our ancestors, and it's an undertaking that we take with another being. Colonial, in the context that I'm going to be approaching, it will be our treaty with the colonial being, and that term, it's kind of a law, a sacred law. Wetaskiwin. Win gives it that oomph of I guess if you say an act like a statute, but it's deeper than that. It lives with us. It's in us. Once we undertake to live in peace together as human beings, and that's we can't go against that. That's the natural law comes into play if we go against those sacred undertakings, because it's to our creator, to our ancestors, and our ancestors are there when we do that undertaking. The other term that I use that you'll hear the old people talk about is asutamatona. And if you look at your treaty, that's the current battle that a lot of struggles, I guess, the young people are trying to understand, is what is cows and plows. And my video talks about that, and it's the promises. It's the promises that we make to each other when we coexist. How are we? How are we going to coexist? And in our understanding, when we tamatu, and that's in the future, those promises, there's sacred promises that we make to each other, and how we're going to coexist. And the misunderstanding of agricultural benefits, that's what I address in that video. Agricultural benefits. How do we benefit off the land agriculturally? And when we our ancestors, when they stood in front of the Muniao, the colonial being, they had in their heads, in their thought processes, those laws, the sacred laws of the universe, the spiritual laws of the universe, and the natural laws that Creator gave us, like gravity and all those things that are absolute truths, like gravity. It falls, water flows. Those are the natural laws that we speak of when we say natural laws. But it goes deeper than that as well. And the other one is tipahamatuan. How tipaha means to measure the length of the relationship, the treaty relationship. So you're measuring. Our ancestors used the sun, the water, and the grass. And for us, that conceptualizes life. So when you say it in our language, it has greater meaning because we're thinking of something that into the future. So forever, forever, as long as there is life, forever. So Tipahamatoen is another law. Asotamatoen is another law. Witaskewen. Those are the three terms that we will when you hear the old people talk about the treaty, but they always put it into context of whatever it is that they're discussing. And I wanted to kind of focus on uh, why we're all treaty people. Every human being that is on Turtle Island. Turtle Island. I'm not just saying Canada, colonial Canada. Our sacred treaty extends beyond into the spiritual realm of our existence and the natural, our natural being, our natural existence, our human existence as peoples. So for us, the relationship is it extends to every human being, every living thing. And I want to tell you why. When our ancestors stood in front of the Munio, I wish I had a flip chart behind me, but when our ancestors stood in front of the Munio, or sat across him, imagine this. They're sitting at a fire. For us, fire is, it's within us. Nia Neo. And you and each and every one of us are made out of that Neo. It's a sacred being, Creator made a sacred being with elements of our motherland. We have iron, we have zinc, we have all those different elements that came from our motherland. And we are a part of that. So we are our Mother Earth. We come out of our Mother Earth. Water. That's why we say water is life, because we're 80% water. We are in water 9 months before we are born. And our lungs, they carry wind, the air that we breathe, and it's a reciprocal relationship with our natural world. And what's the other one? Fire. Every heartbeat. Creator gave us a part of the energy of the sun. And every heartbeat that we have, it's a continuous connection to the sun, to life, because that's what gives us life. Is the sun gives us everything life. And if it wasn't for the sun, we'd be all, we'd all be AIs. Well, I want to talk about that later.
Okay.
But yeah, that concept that we have of ourselves is we are all human beings, and Creator, we are all sacred beings made of those four elements. And ne wiao, ne is the four. Now wiao is our bodily vessel, but it has in when you conceptualize it, it also has that word which means eki namaguya, which is he created us. Now is kind of like a global term for all humanity, or but Newiel is very specific to ourselves. We're known as there's a term that the old people use, precise. Our language is precise. So when we describe ourselves, that's the preciseness of our humanity, is those things. And I want to address uh, the way that the colonial version, uh, in contrast to how our ancestors conceptualized that relationship to go forward, and they used because they knew the Munio in their brain, in their thought processes. They knew what a depth, the plow, the depth of the plow, and that's for they knew, they were so smart, you know. They knew that the depth of the plow that's something that the colonial being could actually conceptualize in the brain that was the same as ours, you know, agriculture. So our ancestors, when they told the Munio, yeah, we will share our land, our motherland with you, you know, and but only to the depth of the plow, for good reason, for good reason, because the land, our motherland, is so sacred. She provided everything for us to subsist on for as long as our human life, you know, for as long as we were able to coexist with our natural world. And we didn't crave YouTube, or we didn't crave, those are something that weren't even in our they had prophecies about them. They knew about those prophecies, and I've seen some of the petroglyphs that exemplify what the prophecies were. So it's not as if that we didn't uh, uh, we're just not a materialistic people. That's how the best way I can explain it. But our ancestors, knowing the colonial being was a different kind of a being, that um, having you know, subsisted with them for quite some time, they knew the capitalistic nature of that being, especially when they were going to, when the railroads were, when they were talking about railroads and all that stuff. Um, now, which means the Iron Road. They knew that stuff. They knew, they were able to discuss it amongst themselves. And because of the buffalo uh, was over harvested, is what I would say, but it was purposefully done. They knew that. So when we had, when we prepared to meet this colonial being, uh, our ancestors knew the characteristics that, and they also had the laws that they carried in their hearts and in their intellect. So when they told the Munio the depth of the plow, it was to symbolize that they could not give, they could not, and this is a hard word I'm going to use. I don't know if it's acceptable, to prostitute our motherland to materialism, and it's not a nice way to look at our own mother, but that's essentially what has happened, as we have tried to maintain our peaceful relationship with the colonial beings. So it's we've lived through it, and it's by virtue of that belief in ourselves as human beings, and belief in the way Creator created us to be able to get to as far as we have come. I don't know. Am I boring anybody?
No, not me,
I'm
anyways.
learning. I am learning so much from you, small boy Marie. Like you are amazing. I love listening to you speak.
I just don't want to ramble and get lost in my thoughts.
I get lost in my own thoughts walking out the
Yeah.
door. Like there's nothing you can do to make me lose my thoughts.
And something I've noticed about us as a people is when we tell a story, we tell the whole story. And
Mm,
sometimes we have to go off on this little tangent to make the story the point that's relevant. And that was the beauty of how we communicate with each other, right? Is that storytelling and the time it took to listen and get
yeah.
to know each other. So and I think, this is our Indigenous space. So this is how we communicate with each other and share. So please
Right.
Yeah.
continue.
Share. I'm
And
gonna share a little bit. Here we go. I
Yep.
don't know.
Reminder to everyone, clapping is tapping and sharing is caring. So please invite your friends and family if anyone else is interested in learning more about treaties and the history of the
oh,
treaties, our treaty relationship. And please get us up to, we're at 11,000 likes. So if we could get up to 20,000, that'd be awesome. And we do have a gift goal up in the right corner. So we appreciate any gifts that you can offer today.
and if I may say something,
Yes,
reading
please.
in fuck, all this stuff just like decides to fall right now, right? Of course, because trying to lean my phone up against the coffee cup and it spills everywhere. So it's okay.
It's
The thing
Monday.
is, though, it's Monday, so no big deal. We're okay. But no, the thing is, that, like, learning about this from you and learning in the Indigenous studies group I was in on the U of A website that I took, learning that stories didn't take just hours, it took days, sometimes even weeks. And children would come around, and people would come around to listen and literally listen. And when I listened to my history of our Indigenous culture, and it puts me at ease. I don't feel like upset. I don't feel angry. I don't, every emotion I have is completely wiped away. Like there's nothing you could say that would make me lose interest in this because this is us. This is who we are. We are here because our ancestors cannot be. So, yeah, like this is our time to talk about our people and focus on our people. So, please enlighten us. Please enlighten us. Enlighten everybody with your stories and your truth.
I wanted to kind of go back to the depth of the plow because that's where the young people are kind of stuck at. They think it's about money, um, and because the lawyers don't understand our thought processes, they don't understand the laws that we carried into the treaty arrangement. Um, it's difficult for them to um, put our worldview in front of the judges and the other lawyers that can't conceptualize, especially the federal government's lawyers and any other provincial lawyers. They can't give voice to our ancestral way of being. So to top it off, they don't know the language, and then they don't have the uh, uh,
Knowledge.
their allegiance is to the queen or whoever is the monarch of the time. Now it's to the king. So that's
Mhm.
where their allegiance is as lawyers. Um, um, Practicing in a colonial and I'm going to have to say this in a YT supremacist regime because that we didn't create that constitution. It's a self-governing. I call it a self-governing institution um, uh, that the Monial came onto our land with, and then they set up all these little houses and then said, oh, this is going to be our federal government, this is going to be our provincial government, this is going to be our municipal government, with no acknowledgement at all of our existence and where we fit into that whole scheme of things. So in their constitution, there's two sections that are very specific to our being, our Neuyawan, our Inuit. They split us into three groups, and
Yep.
they're really good at that. They're really good at that. Moniawak, and the Innu call themselves Inuak. Kianawis Neuyawa. Um, they called us the Indian, the Métis, and the Innu. Three of our indigenous peoples are they've categorized them, split them up into three groups for future references and future conflicts that they can create with those three indigenous peoples. And in our hearts, we don't disdain any of them because we all have a collective responsibility to protect our sacred motherland. But the other one is 9124, which says the federal government has exclusive jurisdiction over Indians and lands reserved for Indians, which is a very a YT supremacist law, that lawmaking power. No, creator's the one that created us. So for us, it's not within their authority to assume jurisdiction over our humanity, our sense of being, and our sacred motherland. That's how they usurped the authority over our turtle island, the on this side of the medicine line. And the Americans, that's a different story. They did theirs kind of different in their constitution. But those are two sections that are very YT supremacist, and it creates difficulty for us when we're trying to um, address uh, the breaking of treaty promises, the breaking of like the if when we tell them you can't do that, you can't go down that river. That's the flows, water flows. Um, it goes against our ancestral way of being, our the way we think as Neoyawak. So when they do that, it their wordsmithing of the documents they used to be self-governing, and I say self-governing institutions with no self-control. That's how I conceptualize colonial being as a governing entity that kind of planted themselves on our motherland and kind of just took over. But without our consent, that they even made us, I think it was in the 60s, we finally got to vote in their institutions, their elections, but we didn't ask for that either. I don't know, maybe somebody did along the way, but it was kind of they give us these rights as YT people. When you look at it, I don't think they would have liked it. It's not for when they came to share our motherland. We didn't expect them to. Like, we have Ukrainians, we have Muslims, we don't stop them from practicing their own being as long as they respect our way of being. Our it's not our way to desecrate our motherland, and we survive off what she provides. So when they said the depth of the plow, they meant it. They meant it because the depth of the plow abides by those laws that they knew, the sanctity, the paramountcy of the sanctity of all life. And that was the uh, uh, kind of like our fundamental principle of our humanity. That's how we were able to respect each other and life around us, and to um, it maintained peace. among the all of us. We all, each Indigenous language holds within that the codification of their humanity is what I that's the only way I can explain it. The words, every word has a meaning, and it is very sacred. Again, from what I've been told, every syllable that comes out of our mouth has a song, and that comes from way back, and that's to keep reminding us of our own humanity as Neoyawak, and that codification is what was embraced when we stood in front of the Munio to say, okay, we're going to live together. We're going to shack up, you know. There's no law that, there's no law that's going, but, it was sanctioned. It was a relationship that was sanctioned by our ancestors. Our creator was there. And, I don't want to go into the details, but, our ancestors prepared with ceremony and much thought. They relied on the powers that we have to communicate with other sources, I'll say, to bring us to that understanding with the Monio. So those laws that we came with when we made that treaty, that's what governs us. Those same laws was the supreme law over a sacred motherland that all the indigenous thought processes recognized and adhered to. So if you can think of every like right now the battle in the US with the immigrants, they call the illegal immigrants. They're not illegal. They're illegal from the constitutional law of the American white supremacist constitution, but they're not illegal from where we stand because
No.
we don't discriminate. That's against our ancestral way of being.
Right. And just if I could just interject for a minute, like I said, I love hearing you speak. Um, I was listening to an indigenous person talk about it and talk about like, land back and all this, and they said they can't stand us as indigenous people. They can't stand the indigenous people because they fear us because of the fact that they look at us like the failure that they are because they failed to eradicate all of us. They got most of us, but they didn't get all of us. And so, therefore, in terms, it is the failure they see in us because they didn't do what they were trying to accomplish. So we
Yeah,
are a failed accomplish in their eyes, and that's why they dislike us very much. And that really hit home. That
yeah,
really hit home.
yeah. I've had some discussions with the in some of the lives, and they struggle with it. And uh, the way I discuss it with them is our humanity is is more important than the material things that they're scared of that we're going to take away from them. I mean, we can't. They're here forever. The rest of our journey, our collective journey with the now we have other um, peoples from other lands that were you know kind of they come and take refugees. They come and take refuge on our motherland. um some of them, I don't know what they call that, asylum, is that what that is?
Yeah, asylum.
Yeah, and we, they say we are a melting pot or multicultural. Well, we can give it all kinds of names, but basically everybody's human beings, and everybody has a role to play. I mean, uh, yeah, we
Mhm.
don't pray the same, but I do have, on my journeys in TikTok land, everybody's stuck on this is a truth. I mean, I go into a lot of lives, I listen, and they have this. Um, I I'm going to go as far as saying
Ideology?
it's a mistaken belief that uh, they are superior to all life. Like, and that's where our treaties get that wording, that wordsmithing on the treaties. We're just gonna pull up that part of it. The wordsmithing of their conceptualization of what they believed that there were legal their legal wordsmithing was okay to them because their belief system tells them that man has dominion over all life. That's what the Bible tells them. So they incorporate those thought processes into the wordsmithing of the what they thought was the treaties, and their conceptualization of the treaties, and then the legal system that's there, that the colonial legal system. I don't know, maritime law. I don't know what kind of law they're following these days, but just the wordsmithing, it tells me that. I'm just gonna read to you that portion where it says they have dominion, and that comes from the Bible.
That's a
So
really good point.
yeah, so I'm able to distinguish between when I'm sitting there listening to um, the debates between the young people and the older people in their rooms. The older people are trying to say, "Look, man, we do have our beliefs, and they recognize that that was a mistake for a lot of those societies. I don't know what to call them, but they erred in assuming that dominion, that jurisdiction over other human beings, and making slaves out of them. And I'm just gonna,
Cool. And while you're looking for that, I just want to share with everyone too. Like one of the biggest teachings for me, because I wasn't raised with a deep connection to our culture, and grew up in the city, so sadly I learned a lot about my indigeneity through the people I met through my career, and because I've mostly worked on reserve and with First Nations, and I remember like sitting with a group of elders and just to have it put into words for me, then when they said, we do not, we're the pitiful ones. Nothing on this planet needs us, and we need everything. We need the air, we need the water, we need the animals, we need the medicines, we need the plants that we eat, and none of it needs us to survive. And because I also grew up Catholic, and I remember, how that other perspective is that everything was put here for us, where I feel like that's not really the way our Nehia way. We're
yeah,
part of it, but it's not here for us specifically.
yeah,
Like
to
for us to
dominate.
control. Yeah, like to control it and own it.
Yeah,
Um, it makes me think about, while you're still looking for that, let me know when you find it because I don't want to interrupt you. But like
yeah,
what you were saying earlier too about the language barriers. You know, can you imagine trying to negotiate these agreements when the two parties don't even speak the same languages? And you have interpreters, but how do you know for sure who you can trust as an interpreter, and that things are being interpreted properly? Because how many of these interpreters even really fully understood the Cree language themselves, or the Blackfoot language, or the Dene, whichever language it was being negotiated in? And so that must have been such a challenge for everybody around the table, and specifically our people, because we didn't have all of those supports that the colonial representatives had with the crown and the resources, and I'm sure they had their legal teams and things back then too. where we didn't have that same representation and support when we were sitting at this negotiation table.
Yeah, they pretty much had interpreters. I know with Peter Erasmus is one of the ones that was the interpreters for Treaty 6. Um, one of the things I want to kind of humor about on the written text of the treaties is the colonial being was so desperate towards as they were uh, asserting dominion over our sacred motherland. Um, when you get to the 1950s, there were our people like our relatives out at Rocky Mountain House. Um, they weren't. They were still structured with our traditional governance structures. There are governance institutions, but they instead of signing chiefs, they signed people. They took the X's of the band members or the bands that they created for these for the Rocky Mountain House Sotos. I think there's Sotos and Chippewyans or whatever Ojibways. One of the if you go to one of the adhesions to that adhesion, let me find it. But you'll find that a woman actually signed the treaty.
Wow.
A woman. Her name is Susie Strawberry. Go to your written text of the treaty and you'll find Susie Strawberry actually signed the treaty before she got to vote in their self-governing institution.
That's amazing. I never knew that.
Yeah, I've studied Treaty 6 up and down. I broke it down to how I just tore it apart. In my mind, I tore it apart, and you'll see where they promise economic and agricultural stuff, like where they refer to let's see.
And the one thing too about promising this economic kind of prosperity through agriculture, and then when our people became very good farmers and their produce was, of higher quality than the settler population, then all of a sudden Canada steps in and makes it illegal to purchase anything produced by Indians.
Yeah. Yeah, and what they did too was because I studied the treaty pay lists, I studied the annual reports, throughout the years. What they did was I want to go back to the very first sale of our motherland by the colonial being. Because they took jurisdiction over our land, and they were selling it and they were giving it away for free, the very first acre they have an accounting system where they had to account for every acre they sold, and that accumulated throughout the years. So that's why we speak of this trust, a $1 trillion trust, and that's an accumulation of our sale, percentage sale of our resources. But what they did back in the day when they were talking agricultural benefits, they gave us a formula, 640 acres for a family of 5, I think it was. But they had this formula, and then they stuck us on the reserve. They punched a number on the reserve, then they named that reserve after the chief that they assigned to that reserve. And when they started farming, when the churches came, we gave them a space on our motherland, in our homelands. Like I'll use Neosca as an example. They put the church there. Our people helped them build the church, and that was so, with the understanding that those churches that were put there were hired by the federal government to teach us how to be sedentary and how to farm.
Mm-hmm.
When there's some horror stories about them, our parents or our grandparents going out into the field to work the land, and then what they did was, with the ones that were working the land, the ones where they bought the implements, the Indian agent bought the implements, and then there was, let them, oh, we need a hoe, or we need a plow, you need, different things. And the ones that were ranching, they would make them grow hay, whatever. But as that time went on, as they were making, clearing land to grow fields and fields of, barley, whatever. And they have records. Those annual reports actually have records, and they kept track of every Indian that planted a seed and how many seeds they used, and
Wow.
and I went through those annual reports. They made me sick, but they took those records, and then you could see, okay, well, these Indians brought in, this is how many bushels of oats we got, and blah blah blah. But what they didn't put in there is, yeah, they gave them seed for next year, but they actually took the whatever those were sold for, they took them. The Indian agents took them and put it towards their salaries and whatever. So it was kind of like we were farming for it. We were their slaves,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
unpaid slaves, and it was I was just totally appalled at how our ancestors, and then later on, when they were in school, when they were forced us into the schools to get in and educate ourselves, to educate us, but it was a forced education. And I remember my first day of class, first day of school, it was horrible. I didn't know a word of English, and then this white woman was shaking the heck out of me, and I didn't know why.
Wow.
And and then my auntie, who had gone to Bible school, she kept yelling at me, saying, "Marie, smile away!" She was yelling at me. I could hear her in the background. And I when she said that, when I said that, Marie Small, then they the shaking stopped, and she just dropped me, and kind of shoved me away. So, okay, well, this number so and so is her baptismal name is this, So it was we were given numbers. All of us were given numbers, and that was our supposed to be the treaty promise to educate us in the colonial language, their colonial, their math, whatever, to show us. Those schools were actually intended to show us how to be farmers, and it was taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
And that stays with me always, because um, if they had, say that the churches were put on, that today, we don't charge the church tax. They've built their schools, but schools are still there. They've expanded them, so, but at least now they teach a little bit of Cree. They're bringing a few elders now and again, but mostly it's the YT teachers that are teaching our language. It's not me. I've never been in that school, to one classroom, to teach, to educate what I'm educating now. I don't get brought into the school system because I'm too, I don't like to say I'm racist. I'm just too, somebody give me a word. Forward, maybe, too
Yeah.
Brutally
descriptive.
Honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brutally honest.
And well, I'm really glad that you're sharing your knowledge with us. But Smarshy did want to she had a question or a comment that she wanted to
Okay.
have.
Well, there was a comment in the chat that I was reading, and I was trying to figure out how to say this. Sparkle Shine asked us, "Isn't it in the Bible that we are the caretakers?" And I don't know if I've ever read the caretaker part in the Bible, but I do know when the caring stopped and when the ownership and began. It's when the settlers started taking more and more
Yeah.
and owning the land and stealing the land and not giving us proper credit where proper credit was due and not thanking us for helping them survive the first winter they came here, because if it wasn't for us we wouldn't be they wouldn't be here. They would
Mm-hmm.
have perished because they didn't know what to do. And that's the thing that people have to understand. It wasn't just automatically it stopped. It
Yeah.
was over time. It was a constant, this is mine. It was like a little kid taking a temper tantrum and taking toys away from everyone and hoarding them for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I see that that behavior is very, very common in the lives that I do go. Like they speak like we don't exist.
Yeah.
oh, I know, and that's the sad part. Like I have had Marie, small boy Marie, in my life, and I have said everybody, you sit down, you shut your mouth, and you listen.
Yeah.
This is an elder. We have an elder speaking. We don't overspeak. We don't interrupt. You put your hand in the comments. If I see it, I'll see it. If I don't, one of my mods will be like, hey, they'll put their hands up, or you know what? Take your camera and your video and just be like, here. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because I
And
can't stand listening to elders and having elders being disrespected. I don't put up with that.
no,
Yeah,
and
I'm
that's
I'm grateful for that.
me too. And
I don't mean to offend. It's just I get so passionate in when I'm because I've lived it and because I've gotten to understand it in such a way that I can see both sides.
hmm
Yeah.
me too.
Um, yeah, and it if there's a guy that actually he's a YT person and he learned our language on his own.
Isn't that amazing? And did you know too that Minister Mark Miller learned, I think it was the Mohawk language? Like
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
a
heard about
first that
that.
a member of
yeah,
parliament took time to learn the language. That
yeah,
Right.
really shows something to me. But I just want to, before we leave, I want to make sure that we address Sparkle and Shine's comment. And I wouldn't doubt that there's something in the Bible about caring for land. I don't believe the Bible was the book that it's claimed to be now to be used
yeah. They
against
do.
others. It was a
She
good
was
book.
right. Something about caretakers, but um, uh,
I
it's
believe.
kind of morphed into something other than like the throughout time, the Bible has lost its meaning as a guide to our humanity.
Yes.
Right. And our
Um,
humanity, our
well,
humanity is just as important as any other person of any other race, religion, creed, or
but
um,
yeah.
orientation. I don't care if you are not for humanity. Do not speak to me. If you are
Yeah,
against people being who they are, do not talk to me. I
Yeah.
have no time for that.
That
yeah,
that's such a good way, though, Marie, to put that. I never heard anyone describe the Bible like that, a guide to our humanity. That is a beautiful way to put it. And
yeah,
it's sad that some folks, have used that guide to control others,
Hmm.
manipulate people, manipulate their own truths and their own histories, and just to justify their own behaviors as well. But that's a whole other topic.
yeah.
I wanted to explore something, and I never thought about this before. And you mentioned earlier about how our people knew these people. And I didn't think about that because I know that our ancestors had obviously had some exposure to these newcomers for quite some time before they signed the treaties. So, of
Yeah.
course, they got to understand. And I know our people are very observant. They read people, they understand their energies, their motives. I've seen this about our people. And that was an interesting comment that you made. It was quite some time ago, early on in your when you were opening up about how our ancestors knew what they wanted, like what those
Their
settler colonial.
responsibility was, and
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's the thing about the constitutions that have been put, like even in Mexico, like the Spaniards had shared the same kind of characteristics, and they're very um, they have the biblical thought processes as well, and that's why uh, uh, a lot of when they colonized the indigenous peoples in that area, um, their way of being was incorporated. That the indigenous thought processes. This was a comment that was made to me by one of the Chicanos. They said the only way we could save our ancestral way of being was to incorporate our thought processes into the Bible's teachings, the good part of the Bible, the parts of the Bible that they could relate to, the goodness of the Bible. And they were able to create their own language. Like it's like, you know how mischief is to us? Cree, French, and the Bible? Well, they did the same thing in Mexico. They
Wow.
did this, and they created a sub language of their core language in order
Right.
to keep it as pure as they could, because they knew they were undergoing an assimilationist type of um, um,
Yeah.
by their colonizer. You know, I don't know what to call it, but
And
yeah,
and we had a good conversation on Saturday in Jana's live, and Treaty Bird was there. And I just want to say this: if we have to talk about building Canada and making Canada stronger, we always have to talk about how it started, how
yeah,
Canada formed. Because if we don't talk about that, we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. I learned something from you, and I learned something from Treaty. I learned a lot from Treaty Bird and you, and even Krista Fox and all the Indigenous creators on here that are just absolutely bang on 100% all the time. They tell the truth, even if it's something that's uncomfortable for me
yeah.
to hear as an Indigenous person, because I didn't grow up in in my culture like Birdie did. I didn't grow up in my culture like you did. Like,
Mm.
we had so much stolen from us, and there is, okay, I'm gonna ignore that comment because that's just,
Yeah.
Yeah, don't
I
let them
think,
get to you.
yeah, one of the things about being treaty partners and peaceful coexistence, the whole basis of the symbol that we used, the depth of the plow, was to maintain peaceful coexistence and to veer away from uh, territoriality. That didn't
right,
come into our, we just respected each other's space. You know, if we went into
right,
Blackfoot territory, well, not, I don't say Blackfoot territory, but you know, where the Blackfoots made their home, and they were just as nomadic as we were. We respected their space, and you know, we mixed, and we do that today. Like I have, my
right,
aunties married. Two of my aunties were married into the blood reserve, and I can't imagine our ancestors doing otherwise. I mean, there was no borders to tell us, no, you Crees aren't allowed here. Those stories come after colonization.
Yeah.
You
right.
know,
They and
uh,
they
we subsisted together, and we traded with each other. All these
Yeah,
major highways that crisscross our lands and all that stuff. That was our trails. Like in our family's bush, we actually found an old cross that goes. I don't know what happened. Who has that cross
right,
now? But it's no cross, and it was the old Edmonton Calgary Trail. It went right through our bush,
Wow.
yeah,
you know. And when you go, like I went out to in BC, like it's not like we weren't so so stuck in our own spaces that we didn't crisscross over the mountains. Back then, time was nothing. Time was oh, little, and maybe 4 moons will get there, that kind of,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we traveled. I have my great grandfather had 13 girls. Three
Oh
of those
wow.
girls, three of those girls went and had relationships with our relatives out in on the West Coast.
Wow.
I have relatives on the West Coast. I wouldn't know where to begin to look for them.
Yeah.
Imagine I would look for the taller ones because the West Coast are
Right.
kind of a lot of them are shorter than us. But we've mixed our I'll say our bloodlines, but we're still we remain our indigeneity. We still maintain our connection to our motherland. It doesn't
Right.
matter how we mix.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because that I love the term motherland too, because there is definitely a physical connection, I think,
Mm-hmm.
that Indigenous people feel to land. And I
Yeah,
never noticed it before. Like, I know I was always, even as a child, drawn into natural spaces. Like, if there was bush, I wanted to be in the bush. I wanted to be where those trees were and where the animals and stuff. And I was an only child too, so I didn't mind spending time by myself. But I noticed when
Right.
I started working for Indian Affairs in the 90s, almost every time I'd go on reserve somewhere, I just felt this physical draw. Like I was being drawn down into the land. And it was just, I never understood it when I first started, but I definitely understand it now. It was almost like a sense of home, like it was a magnetism I was
yeah.
feeling.
And nature has well nature like water has its own sense of being. Like we were in water 9 months before we were born, and we it's not like poof magic. Some scientific thing happened in our mother's womb when the sperm met the egg and whatever. We have um, we have an understanding of a life before that comes enters the life giver's body. Like there's all kinds of energies that happen, and our understanding of water is so the science are not just trying to scientists are just now figuring out that water is energy and it's alive
Hmm.
and
Right.
we can't disrespect it
No,
because
we can't.
and what happened to when I was living in Chilliwack, that's surrounded by mountains, but in Abbotsford, more so down towards the Abbotsford area, Somas Lake was trying to reclaim its sacred space. When we
Right.
had those atmospheric rivers, remember, and
Yeah.
that they drained that entire lake and drained it into the Fraser River, and then it's like the energy of that. The land there, the underneath, we did so much trying to redesign creation,
Yeah.
and creation is it was perfect the way it was. How can you improve on creation's creator's creation of humanity and life, the life forms that he gave us to subsist peacefully. Uh,
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
yeah.
You know,
One, go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. No, no, you go ahead.
No, I'm having a smoke.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit about depth of a plow. And something that I think about from a bit, and this is controversial. So, everybody that's listening, this is controversial because when I think about depth of a plow, that means to me that we agreed to share for that purpose of farming
Yeah,
and for to grow food and to share because that was like the agreement we were sharing, not that
yeah,
we were going to be locked up on some little parcel of land that, and some of us lands that our ancestors weren't even familiar with. But the controversy I want to bring to the table is I believe then that the minerals, the oil and gas, all of the coal, the lithium, gold, diamonds, all of those things were never intended to be shared. And
Yeah,
they are not part of that treaty. And I also wonder if we could argue the same about the timber resources.
exactly. Everything, because if our conceptualization of ourselves, our identity, where we come from, the our roots are in the motherland. Everything that we are comes from the motherland. Like I said, we have lithium in our body. We have every element that's in our motherland that they're extracting. The oil, we probably have, some kind of petroleum kind of in our bodies, and for them to, I'll say again, to prostitute the sources of life that sustain our motherland so that life will continue. That's the way I look at it. uh, the oil is, creator put that there for a reason. Everything has a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Every life, that life form creator created, every pebble has a purpose. Every grain of sand has a purpose. Every speck of salt has a purpose. And when we try to improve on that, we totally just mess things up, you know. And I just wanted to address the AI thing before I get off here. The
Okay.
thought, the thought processes of the colonial being. It's a danger to humanity. It's a danger to life. I mean, that's because of where we're at now in our existence. Our trajectory is to self-destruct as human beings, and our humanity, if we uh, recognize the sanctity of our humanity, which was the original instructions, is that all life is sacred. The paramountcy of the sanctity of all life. That was our most our guiding principle, and it wasn't about rights. It wasn't about entitlement to use the land. It wasn't about rights to the land. It was our responsibility to the land. And just as when we're gifted a life, a grandchild, that's a responsibility. It's our sacred responsibility to bring that child, when the child is born. There, we have certain ceremonies for that, and to bring them into this world, and to make them good human beings in the best way we know how, that creator gave us. Newiawin, if they're going to be a good Muslim, well, they have their codifications as well too. And there's nothing wrong with being Muslim. There's nothing wrong with being Ukrainian. I love our relationship with the Ukrainian, because there's a big backstory on that one.
Mm-hmm.
The Ukrainians came, but a lot of the Chinese as well. If you didn't go into Red Note, I recommend you go and pop into some of their lives. Some of their posts. They have this thing about respecting humanity, respecting each other, respecting the world around you, and that's so similar to ours. Like, everybody knocks China as being, and we could actually learn something from them.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. I've heard this before as
absolutely.
well. Yeah. Yeah. So we do have a couple folks that have joined the panel. Did you have some more you wanted to add, Marie, or shall we take some questions and open the floor for
Yeah,
some conversation?
I'm game for just about anything.
Okay, awesome. And I just wanted to let everyone know that we're gonna try to keep it to only 2 hours now, so we still have 50 minutes. Because
Okay.
just to make it a little easier for our tech folks to upload things to YouTube and stuff. So I just want a little reminder to everybody: tapping is clapping and sharing is caring. So we're at 31,000 likes now. If maybe we can make it to 40, that would be
Yeah.
awesome. So I'm just looking at the panel. I see Curtis, you're on top. If you want to take it away, my friend, and add your comment or ask a question of Marie.
Tanse eksiuten isikasan kito sagana which is sagawin niya. Nas
Ah,
Natski sagaw. So yeah, just I'm from Bickstone. I'm a Woodland Cree or a Bush Cree. That's in Treaty 8, but my ancestors were also from Yeasis Band in Lac La Biche. And my third great grandfather signed the treaty there with Chief Piesis in 1876 in Fort Pitt. And they never did get a reserve land. And what happened is, a lot of them were involved with that, what they call the Rail Rebellion in Lac La Biche and with the
Yeah.
Piesis Band and different things. And the band, the majority of the members never got reserve, and majority of them were forced to take Métis script, like they were forced out of treaty. But my ancestors, 13 of them, they refused script and they moved out of there and they joined up in Treaty 8 here. So that's how I maintained our status, because the majority of our band, probably about 300 members at the time, did take Métis script and are forced out of treaty. Never got reserve land. So that's like one of the land claims that people, they don't like. If you go through Lac La Biche today, you'd never know there was a Piesis band there. Like there's no sign, there's no history, there's nothing there. They kind of like the band was like totally driven off, and. But anyways,
That's where my great grandpa. That's where my grandpa's from. Is from the Lac La Biche area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And two things you said: Métis script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a trick that was.
My take on that
right?
is because we didn't. Do you ever watch that one TikTok? There's the guy that's offering this Indian how much they'll benefit from coming under white rule.
I don't think I've seen it.
There's a TikTok on it, and it's so to the point, but it was not in the YT's jurisdiction. They talk about my motherland is not like a piece of pemmican you can just tear and then give a piece to to so and so, and those are pieces of paper that are based on YT lies of dominion over our land. And there's some funny stories about that. It's like cows and plows today, where you get a piece of paper and says, "Oh, this is worth so much money." And a lot of people don't think about the things that some of us do. About how the world and how the systems work and how they work against us, and to accept that piece of paper by someone that one doesn't read or write, they're going to say, okay, I'm going to get 3 bags of flour, I can get some pork, whatever. That's the thinking of your person that's getting that piece of paper. They can buy so much, and money has no value in our way of being. So it was ludicrous to even think that this YT person could give us a piece of paper and to assume that they had the authority to break our land into pieces.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, our medicine is not for sale. It's to gift someone because medicine is sacred to us. Like sage is sacred to us. White sage, braided sweetgrass. I'm trying to remember all my information in my little brain here, so bear with me.
But that's one of the things that the government is now using, and if you're following the politics of it all, they're using the Métis claim to our motherland, which it's not, from our perspective, it's not a claim. They had every I'm not gonna I don't like using they had a responsibility to the motherland so that future generations could
Yes,
subsist off the motherland. That was the thinking back then. And
right,
if they sold their piece of paper, not knowing what it was worth, that had land attached to it,
right. Well, see,
that's how they were able to um, um, bamboozle and dupe our people into believing that just because you got a piece of paper, not knowing the intentions of that piece of paper, uh,
Oh, 100% agree.
it's a blatant theft, blatant lie, and it's not a fair, because of the way we are. That's not a fair dealing. I mean,
No.
And how many, I hear the stories too of when there were the script, they were taking script, how there would be folks sitting outside that script tent and offering like cents on the dollar for to buy it from them when they left there, and offering
Right.
whiskey and just completely taking advantage of their like some folks' illiteracy, the
Mhm.
Yeah.
addictions that they've now had because they've been
Oh,
introduced to
yeah.
firewater and all of that, right? And it's
Oh,
so
yeah.
Yeah,
gross.
And that's,
prohibition. Yeah, prohibition is another part of the promises that they wouldn't bring firewater to, or anything intoxicants, I'd say,
yeah. And,
because our ancestors knew the effect that it had on the human spirit. So
well, and not
that was
only
part
that,
of the treaty itself. That was relayed, and that was actually incorporated into the colonial version. So a lot of what we wanted was not reflected in the written version of the colonial version of the treaty, but our understanding of it was misinterpreted or misconceptualized. I don't know what word to use there, but
yeah.
it didn't capture what our ancestors actually wanted, is for life to continue forever. That's what our version of the treaty is all about, is so that life will continue on our sacred motherland forever, in
Right.
the way that creator made us as human beings.
Mm-hmm. That way.
Well, and again, going off what you just said, Murray, which was absolutely true. They blame us for the intoxication problem. They blame us for the gambling problems. They blame us for all this. But this is what they introduced to us.
Yeah,
This is what they brought to us. We didn't have the problems that we have today before
yeah.
colonization.
But to
No,
be
you're
fair,
good.
we were always gamblers, I've learned.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, we
but like
gambled on
not
them,
not
right?
That's
but
right.
not but no but not in the sense like they think, right? Like that's what I'm saying. Not in the sense that they are saying.
Yeah, that's a good.
But I've heard so many times we took a gamble on them. I've heard so
Yeah,
many
we
times,
did.
well, you have reserves, you
Yeah,
have casinos, you have this. Well, it doesn't mean, like
Yeah.
we
but
were there for you in your time of need and you screwed us
yeah,
royally
Yeah.
and
but
figuratively.
being the people that we are, being the way Creator made us, we're a humble people, we're a noble people, and because we have that sacred responsibility to ensure life continues beyond the seventh generation. And we want to make sure that the seventh generation Neo is going to know what a genuine, authentic Neo is composed of. And
Right.
if we don't teach that to our children right now, seven generations are going to be more lost than the generations that are right now digging for their roots. They're trying to find their language. They're trying to find the values that made our ancestors who they were, and they're
Mhm.
in this colonial maze. Oh, okay, the Bible says this. Okay, that matches with what I heard my cookum saying, or what I heard my cookum talking about. So they're trying to piece themselves together, and uh, some of the hard things about realizing who you actually are as a people, as a human being, is those things that uh, bring love into the world, and that carries maintains peace in the world. And it those are such beautiful gifts that Creator gave us as human beings, and the world that it is now, we have, because we harbor, or we share our motherland with so many peoples of the world. It's our responsibility as the keepers of the land, as the ones that have to maintain our motherland for future generations. We have to find a way to let these other cultures or nationalities, I don't know, the colonial being has so many names for them, immigrants, but we have to find a kind way, because that's how our people are, a kind way to bring them into our fold so that they will help us fight the evil forces that are desecrating her body. I think that's a collective responsibility for every human being on this Mother Earth, not just our motherland, but Mother Earth. Mother Earth,
Hi.
all our
Exactly.
collective responsibility. And I think I've gone to many lives, and when we get to that point in our discussion, they'll say, yeah, yeah, we have to let our petty differences go. Yeah, you shit on us. We shit on you. But, at the end of the day, if we want our children to be good human beings, and if we want the land to be healthy and safe, and we have
Hmm.
a lot of inventory to take within ourselves as human beings, advocating for supremacy or advocating for the goodness of our ancestral way of being. We have to come to terms with our humanity and how we're going to coexist in peace. The colonial being, they're known generations and generations back as a warring peoples.
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
can throw, oh, you guys fought wars too, you killed Custer and all that stuff. Well, that came in. If Custer was kind to us, if Custer was, none of that would have happened.
Yeah.
None of that would have
Yeah.
happened.
And see the thing is with that is when people say, "Well, you guys were in the Red River Rebellion," I say yes. But when we fought, we didn't fight to hurt people. We fought because we needed to protect our land. That was what we were doing, protecting the land that was handed down to us to be the stewardship of the land. So therefore, that was what we were protecting. We weren't doing it to be, "Oh, this is mine, you can't have it." We're doing this
Yeah,
because breaking down generation to generation, and it's the land that we need to take care of. It's
We
like
were.
yeah,
farming. You need all of this, and it's. I'm grateful that who I am. I'm accepting of who I am, but I will not dull my shine. I will not say what I say because people don't want to hear it. I will say it because they need to hear it.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's not. It's not something that they want to hear exactly, but they need to hear it because this is what it is. We
yeah,
are not
Yeah.
AI people. We are not money hungry
And
people. We are not anything like that.
well, and our people weren't here to take from each other, and like you
No.
said, they were protecting. And once something I think about we always look at the living beings we share our motherland and our mother earth with as our relations. The
Yeah.
standing people, the four-legged, the swimmers, the crawlers, those are all our relations. So I
yeah,
believe in my heart our ancestors were fighting for those relations and for their future generations.
yeah. One of the things about being my Nimusumpan, bobtail, they call him geese Kyle. He actually walked out. They wrote him off on a treaty pay list, but that's because he voluntarily removed himself from the treaty relationship, as it was understood in colonial terms, and they let him walk away. And the legal uh, mess that's here right now, because the laws that have been made, man-made laws, have really uh, they didn't think things through, and had they learned from us on how we govern ourselves as a people, had they respected our ways, we would have grown a very good. We wouldn't be going through the turmoils that we have right now. But one thing about being a war chief, in order to be a war chief back in the day, you had to know how to make peace first. That's the only way you became a war chief, is you had to know how to make peace. None of the peoples that are warring today in the global world, in the global psyche, how many of them know how to make peace?
Yeah. Wow.
You know?
That's amazing. I don't want to interrupt, but I did notice Curtis did come on a couple times. I think he wants to add to the conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
But us
I'll
girls, we just keep talking.
zip, 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 zip.
Yeah, Marie, wakum ta nanto, because that's one of my. I think my great grandmother was a relative of bobtail, but
Uh-huh.
they moved up here to Calling Lake years ago. I don't know when, but yeah, somewhere on my family tree way back, there were I think one of Bobtail's sisters, because there was I think three brothers, and one they had a sister, and then one moved up here like a while back. I'm not sure when this was, probably in the 1890s or something. I don't remember, but somewhere in my tree, I'll have to look at it anyway. But your grandfather, you said from Lac La Biche. What was his last name?
Desjardins.
Oh, I'm related to Desjardins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was how he got to be my grandpa. He was adopted. He was an orphan. His parents were killed. I don't know how they were killed, but he was an orphan, and um, the church brought him to. We had probably had relatives out here. He had relatives out here, and he married my grandma under one of those arranged marriages. So he had, I don't know if it was the church that brought him out here, but arranged marriages back then were common, where you were united at, you were what's the saying, promised
Oh,
to,
yes.
yeah, promised your mate to, in as a, probably as a way to, maybe an old way to keep the bloodlines not so incestuous, or I don't know what word to give to that, where you too pure, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Desjardins, I know they have Desjardins up in Anzac, Fort McMurray area.
Slave
Uh,
Lake,
yeah, so
Saskatchewan.
yeah. And where I found a lot of my ancestors, I had this old baptismal records of the church. I went back to
Yeah.
1825, I think. I have it around somewhere.
Oh,
But
wow.
um, I found a lot of our ancestors there. And what the good thing about the church record keeping was, they had godparents written in there. So, if your godparents, it was usually your auntie or uncle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And they had the ages, their birth dates. It was, and then the family groupings. You could usually identify. The treaty paylists are really a lot better for that, because the treaty paylists, they didn't give names to the children or the woman, but they tacked them onto the treaty number of the male, and if the male died, then that the woman was put in a spot to take over that number, and their kids were given, like, say, this guy, he had five women with him, and he had three girls, two boys. Those, when they were doing the treaty paylists, were kind of used as a census, an annual census, because we do treaty annuities every year.
Mm-hmm.
They were used as a census for the our people, births, deaths. They usually recorded the births and deaths of if Tommy Guns passed away, his wife took over that number, and then they wrote the date of the death and stuff like that. And then we as Musqueam is one body. It's not really four bands. Those are creations of the colonial, under the Indian Act type of thing. But as a people, we're all Musqueam.
Mhm.
I don't like to refer to our what the treaty says. It's that we are an adhesion to, because we were at the same time. They had their own politics. I mean, our people weren't dumb at the time. They had their own politics. They knew Monial politics. They knew how the Monial moved, and we made a treaty with the Blackfoot Confederacy before Canada even became Canada. So we have a political relationship, a treaty relationship with the Blackfoot Confederacy, which extends down into the U.S. So, we no one talks to me about these things, but I got to share them somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad we could get you a place to share these things. Learn so much. But I noticed too, we still have Mrs. Radical and the Mrs. So Mrs. Radical's been on the panel for a bit. So maybe if we want to open up, if you've got any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. And just a reminder to everybody, tapping is clapping and sharing is caring. We've made it to 45,000 likes. Woohoo! Thank you, everybody.
I just wanted to comment really and just to both of you, thank you so much and Smarshy for your time. When you have a big mouth white girl like myself, it's really hard to learn how to amplify in the best way possible. And Treaty, you gave us that gift by taking this piece on and educating. So I'm going to shut up and let you two keep doing what you do. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I really do
Okay.
appreciate though that you shared this platform. I remember when you and the missus first started up, and I followed you from day one, and getting to know you both, and I really appreciate that we've been able to build this into what it is. And what a great way for us to connect and find our community, to learn from each other. So I really appreciate you both.
Yeah.
The
Um,
missus, would you like to add? Oh, sorry, Mrs. Radical. Did you want to add something
I
more?
just wanted to say, small boy Marie, thank you so much for joining us. It really touched my heart when you talked about the earth and us coming together. And like, I was crying. Like, you really just moved me with that piece. Thank you so much, because those are the things that are going to really start to change, I think, hearts and minds, is when we have guidance on how to do this. Because I don't think we all
Yeah, we
know.
can't do it alone. We're all in the
Yeah.
same canoe. We're just paddling in different directions right now.
Absolutely. Thank you. The missus, how are you, my
Hi,
friend?
I'm well. Thank you for letting me be part of the show tonight. I know it's late in the show here, but if I could do a land acknowledgement from where I'm from, with the carrier people surrounding me, the Clayton. Um, and so just a land acknowledgement there. Their treaty number, I don't think, is quite established yet. I don't know. I didn't know how to read that, so I didn't want to make a comment. I do want to thank, this is my first time meeting small boy Marie. If I could say some things that what I'm going to take away from your conversation, because I was in and out of this live. We have such busy lives, but I was able to listen to the part about how you said how your people and the, uniting with the different Christianity piece, and they, kind of making it their own. And I don't know exactly how you worded it, but it made me feel a great deal of comfort, because I struggle with the question. I've just heard so many different people share different views on that, And it just made sense that they were amalgamating the best and leaving the rest.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Their humanity matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what matters. Our humanity as human beings collectively. That's what has to happen on a global scale. I'm not just talking, colonial Canada, especially Turtle Island, and getting the young people to. I know going into those individual lives of, the various. I've been into the Palestinian rooms. I've been into the Afro-American, the Afro Americans that are willing to work with us, and then there's the ones that still are they call them pretendians, but they're still digging for their roots, and it's understandable because they came here, they were stripped of their identity. They did make their ancestors provided them some of their own tools, what they could salvage of their what they knew of their African identity, I guess is what it is. But that's something that's a big job, is to um, the change the collective psyche of the masses. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if the white supremacists can lead the 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 psyche of those individuals who think like them, I think a lot of them would change gears if they knew the truth of their humanity.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Yeah, and I
Treaty.
think that's where we gotta go. That's the direction. That's our trajectory, as human beings.
You know,
I wanted, there's so many things to say about your life. And Treaty 6, you you were in a live with Jana the other morning, and you talked about how you weren't necessarily raised and connected with your culture, and when you started understanding residential school, how that hit you, and some of the guilt or shame, or those kinds of feelings that you uh, amongst others, that were generated in it, as a white woman, um, who took First Nation studies as part of my training, and that's where I learned about residential school at 40 years old. And I'm a typical white woman representative across Canada. I can tell you that pain, it was so difficult to get through my courses, because that pain became so intense and so real. And in understanding why a cognitive dissidence in society
Mhm.
happens as people start to realize there is a painful experience emotionally for them. And if they are not in an environment to support what they need to do to express that shame, that guilt, that kind of thing, they can be led down the other path. And I think
mm-hmm.
that has a great deal, and that we need to get this information more into our educational spaces that can help with that. And just the um, the name of the documentary leaves me now, about the residential school that just got the Oscar nomination. Yeah, what is it? Sugarcane.
Mm.
They are advocating to have that documentary as part of the school curriculum. And
Ah,
that it is a step, right? It is a step. So I'm
Wow.
going to step down. And I just wanted to express those things. And what a great show. I'm so
Oh,
glad I was able to to pay attention and to be a part of this tonight. Yeah.
I'm so happy to share this space with you because you're
yeah.
sharing this space
I
with
want to
me.
say something about the word we use for decolonizing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it has the same impact on the human psyche as dehumanizing,
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
because
interesting.
the colonizer is human,
Yes.
and we have to find another word that fits,
Oh
that's
my
more
gosh.
fitting of our people as human beings.
Hmm.
Wow. You've really given me something to think about.
Well,
Oh
find
my.
us a word.
Fingers.
Find us a word.
Okay, let's that'll be our homework. So, just we have another about 20 minutes or so. I'm starting to get a sore throat. I feel like I'm getting sick. But I wanted to share something because our conversation started to me, we're talking a lot about unity and the humanity of all of us. And I read something today that I never read in this way before, and I want to share it with you all. And it's about Tecumseh. And it's in a book called The Indigenous Leaders of Canada. And this is in the introduction. So Tecumseh was born in 1768 in Ohio and became known as the Celestial Panther lying in wait. A famous warrior and orator, he told his people that the white man would eventually eradicate the Indian and conceived of a defensive Indian alliance from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. With the help of the spiritual teachings of Tecumseh's brother, Tenskwatawa, a new resistance movement was born. In 1808, they established Prophetstown, and Tecumseh preached a new message. Brothers, we must be united. We must smoke the same pipe. We must fight each other's battles. We must love the Great Spirit. He will destroy our enemies and make all his red children happy. I feel like today, given the political world we're in with our threat from our neighbors to the south and what's happening with our relations that live south of the medicine line and into Mexico. And now not only are these things happening just to the indigenous people of Turtle Island, but also to the newcomers and the settlers that have been here too. And this is such an important message that we stay united and we find that unity amongst ourselves and with each other.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of fitting. I felt like it kind of fit with where our conversation went and talking about the unity of us and the
Yeah.
humanity of all of us.
Yeah. There's the treaty itself. One, it doesn't have a number. Our version does not have a number in the spiritual realm. The numbers that have been attached to it are taken as surrender documents with the British imperial crown or whatever. They followed those rules. So that same thinking, there's even jokes about it, about setting up Georgia as one of the places where they could bring the Jews. I mean, I've come across that somewhere along the way. But there's a Treaty of Guadalupe that was done in 1848. And I've been kind of studying that and how it really impacted the indigenous of Turtle Island. I think one of the things we need to start doing is to start addressing our motherland the way we understood her to be, because she was our guiding light. I mean, the turtle, if you look at the back of the turtle, the shell of the turtle, you'll see it has um, 13 quadrants or whatever. We followed those seasons. I don't know what to call them, or moons, but those are our months, and our time. We got put into some kind of time warp when we started following the colonial calendar, and we've kind of lost our affiliation to our motherland as our roots, Turtle Island, and anyone that comes to live here and make their home here ought to, in their own psyche, uh, recognize its indigeneity, or its being with the rest of Mother Earth. This is our motherland, but uh, all the lands have their. I know the Australian Indigenous have a word for theirs. and which basically means when they refer to it, their self identity, they call themselves people of the land, but they have their own identification for their motherland, and I'm pretty sure the Maoris do too. I think there's this Ayatora or something, some kind of it starts with an A. I can't remember what it was, but and I imagine the indigenous and other parts of the world have that as well too. But there's treaties that exist in the colonial record keeping, if you will. But when you tear apart those treaties, you can see the dynamic that happened in there. And because I'm a political science major, I can identify those kind of areas. Oh, hi, Lainey. Yeah, but I'm glad to I want to keep pursuing. I go into these lives to educate, not to bully, not to impose, but to educate. I ask questions, and they usually get answered, even if it's by just a negative attitude. I still get my answers.
That's awesome. And I think it's so important that we take the time to learn from one another.
Hmm.
Hmm. Curtis, did you want to add? And Lainey, I noticed you came up and dropped back down. If you want to come back up, let me know.
I just want to put on my camera for a second and hold on a second. I want to show you. There we go. Can you see that? I have a replica of the Treaty 6 medal. If you can see that, so you got it
Oh,
all
your
beat up.
camera's not on, my friend.
Oh,
You
is
got
it?
to
Oh,
hit save for go
okay.
camera. Then there you are.
All right. I'll go a little closer. Tell me if you could see that.
We can see there it is.
There.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's on my video.
Yeah.
Go watch my video, and it'll walk you through what I just talked about
Okay.
on my profile.
Yeah.
It's called Sacred Treaty.
Well,
And
I'll have to watch it. Definitely. Yeah.
yeah, it walks you through, and it takes you to where agricultural benefits. We were the ones that accorded the Monial agricultural benefits. It's not their turn to give us agricultural benefits on their terms, and we have to remind them of that.
mm-hmm. That's so true. Because and I see this. I've seen this my whole career, where there's this tendency for the colonial government of Canada to interpret these treaties for us instead of with us. Because
Yeah,
there's two versions, right? Theirs and ours, like
yeah,
and then the memory of it. And together we need to define what this means for us today.
yeah.
It's
Treaty
yeah.
lands on more accounted because for fisheries, agriculture, and horticulture. Yeah. Yeah, every like the Maori have a relationship. They call them the pakeha, which I don't think it is a derogatory term. If it is, then I can't. But they have their, and the same thing with I like listening to the Australian. I gotta find their name and use that in its place. But um, they have their own definition of themselves, and what they call each other are mobs, which is a unique term. Like they don't call themselves. They've started calling themselves First Nations because they do have like us. We do have linguistic groupings, but we're still peoples, and we still recognize each other as they're like us. Like we can relate to the Moshikas down in central, towards southern across the Mexican USA border, and we have those concepts within our own language that can actually help build improved treaty relations if we use our language to define those relationships and explain to them why those words exist in our language to the greater population, to the greater populace. And I think a lot of them they feel threatened. Are you going to do to us what we did to you? That's kind of a real fear.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, we don't think like them. And the indoctrinated might think like them, but you know, from our ancestral way of being, it's not cool.
Yeah.
You know?
We're not a vengeful people.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. I've seen this too, this fear that we're going to try to do to them. But also, I feel like I see folks that carry guilt and we're not asking people to feel guilty
Yeah.
for even though we all know that many people that reside in Canada today have benefited from this treaty relationship,
Yeah.
but they're not aware of that benefit, and we can't really judge them for that. But when we teach you and then you choose to ignore it, then we can.
Yeah.
But like, but this guilt, I feel like some folks are reluctant to understand us because they don't want to feel guilty.
Yeah. The discomfort.
Yeah, I don't
Like,
like it when I feel guilt. I
yeah,
don't.
because I was thinking of about one of the things that, you know, I was listening to them argue amongst themselves, like, well, we have 400 billion of, you know, of wood or whatever, timber, or we have 400 billion worth of oil that we got to move, you know, and they're going to put a tariff on us, you know, like, and I'm sitting there listening, and I said, that's $400 billion worth of stolen resources that you're taking from the motherland, and you're going to send it to Japan and wherever, you know, God knows where. Uh, there's no one that addresses that issue, but I don't want any more taking our sources of life that's going to keep our motherland alive. That's my argument against the economic argument of, you know, billions and dollars worth of wood and, you know, fish and whatever. You know, there has to be a better way of trade amongst all humanity across. We have the technology, we have the mobility, and, you know, there has to be a healthier, safer, more, I'm not going to say conservative, but a more humane way where it's not just to make bucks, it's to, so that, okay, well, China needs at least, you know, maybe 3 shipfuls of, you know, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and do it where it's not to make money, it's just to trade. Well, okay, well, we'll give you 3 shipfuls of whatever, but, you know, this is what we need over here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
that we all live in that same equality of life, value of, like we have that same standard of living, I guess, right? Where we have now this 1% of the population that has most of the wealth, and much of that wealth realized from these stolen resources, not just from Turtle Island, but from many places like Africa. The things that have happened in Africa are
Yeah.
awful.
And we
They're.
got to clean up the colonial mess. Look at what's happening in Gaza.
Mhm.
They're still crying for help over there. You know, even though the Palestinians have returned to their homelands, they're still struggling. They're still starving. They're still cold. You know, and there's no one in the world. I don't know if anybody's helping them, but I know, whatever humane aid or whatever it is, the governments call them, to help the disparaged. You know.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and then well, we are at just about a little more than 5 minutes left, so maybe we'll just do some closing remarks. And are you good with that, Marie, or was there anything where you wanted to share with us? And remember, we do this every Monday, so if there's something more you want to
Yeah, I
come
enjoyed
up,
the last one. Yeah.
you're always welcome to join us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Next week, we're thinking about talking about lateral violence, and
Well,
where
I
it
love answer
comes
that.
from. I know. I can speak to it myself too.
Yeah.
And Smarshy brought it up actually. So her and I've been chatting a little bit, and it's something I think is a critical thing we need to talk about, because I've even heard our non-indigenous neighbors and people that get in on these comments and lives and TikToks. They talk about how awful we are to each other without understanding the root of the lateral violence and what
Yes.
caused it and why that happened. So I'd like to explore that a little bit more next week.
Okay.
And so please join us. Join us every week if you can. And sometimes I do travel a lot with my job too. And so I do my best to stick to do make sure I've got at least one little promo ad of beforehand and get here on time. Last week I was a little bit late because I was in Halifax, but
Wow.
doing the hard work. And that's one thing we do as Indigenous people in this country. And I'm sure, Marie, you've been the same. Like, we get drawn out, like we have to go all over and we participate in everything that we can, and our
Mm-hmm.
work is never done. And
Yep.
something that's different when we do our jobs, especially when our jobs are related to Indigenous rights or protection of land or child and family services, whatever it is pertaining to our people, we don't
Yeah.
turn it off at the end of the day. We don't shut our computer off at 4:30, go home and not think about it, because it's our lives and our families and our history, our ancestors and our future generations that we work for and live for. And it's just a different way for us sometimes. And I know
Mm-hmm.
there's non-Indigenous people that have jobs like that too, but I feel like we have more jobs like that. More of us do jobs like that
Yeah.
are First Nation and Métis.
And me as an old person, I have to maybe as an ending thing is the building of the AI in Sturgeon Lake.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna take a lot of our water, but um, it's such a big concept. I found out last night that they're going to be building an AI that can travel time.
Wow.
And that's the next thing. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm making the connection. Okay, so where are they going to build um, that AI?
Yeah. This is so,
It's scary.
it is
And
scary.
the thing about it is the AI. Uh, you know how computers were garbage in, garbage out?
Yep.
Well, Creator gave us our own storage. Our brains have so much capacity to do good things, and um, we our thought processes will not be put in there, and I don't want them to be put in there because it doesn't make it human.
Mm-hmm.
But the thought processes that are going into that data center is going to be probably strictly colonial, and it's going to be it's what 200 square mile building or infrastructure. Uh,
200,000 acres, I read.
two, uh, I thought they said 200 square miles. I don't know. I don't know if Treaty 8 is 200,000 square miles, but
Let me
that's still
see.
on treaty land.
Yep.
That's still on our sacred motherland. Underneath that treaty, that colonial whatever piece of paper that sits atop our Turtle Island, there has to be a way that we can. I don't know. That's my next kind of like challenge is to how do we get not build that? How
Mm-hmm.
do we, you know, it goes against being um, our how creator made us. We already have a brain that creator gave us. We just don't use its full capacity. So why would we want to plant part of our brain in a thing that's going to take a lot of water and it's a distorted truths and that's what's scary for me, and
Me
that's going to
too.
go into the future. you
Yes.
know but those are my closing comments. I just want people to think about the repercussions to our humanity if we allow that to happen.
Thank you for that.
So, and thank you all for listening to me babble.
Thank you.
Nanaskom tinawa.
Ask Compton.
Kinanis Compton.
My closing thoughts are three things. Actually, four things. I'll make them quick. J Treaty 17. That's always something to discuss. That's one thing we can discuss. And also, the treaty was forever, and the Indian Act violates our treaty with the second generation cutoff. That's another thing.
Mhm.
We're never supposed to lose our status. We're always supposed to have it. But the government is saying, oh, if you marry out other sex generations or two generations, you're no longer status. That's another issue we're facing. Another thing is the treaties, long as the sun shines, the grass grows and river flows. I was thinking about that because in our belief system, Peace, the sun, and Imaskwasi are the grass, and the rivers are sepia. Imchiwana, they're still flowing. So the sun is a powerful being because he's a being in our way, like a grandfather. He's a powerful being, and and those people, he's a being himself. Like he's a spirit, and so yeah, that's our understanding. But I don't think the Christians have an understanding of the sun that way. They have a different view of it and how we view the rivers and things like that. With spirit. So that's another issue about how we understand it in that way. And the other thing, lateral kindness. I remember we always talk about lateral violence, but there's lateral kindness too. We can always mention that. But it's a scary thought going on to this AI. If it could go back into the future, what are they going to go do? Like, imagine if Indian, like 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, sitting on a hill, all of a sudden this AI monster comes to him and, he's sitting on the hill thinking, oh, these are the evil people from the future coming to us on the land, eh? And it's like, oh, what's going to happen, eh?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's just like the technology they have, like in CERN, and in Europe, they have this thing called CERN where they're smashing atoms and creating all kinds of things. I don't know if you heard about that. That's pretty scary in this AI thing. Like the technology things they're doing, they're kind of going beyond the realm of, I don't know what they're really doing. Like
Creation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're manipulating that, and they're trying to be God and create their own world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh.
Yeah.
And they've forgotten
Hi,
their place.
Yo. Love you all.
Yes, Tapway, love you too. Thank you so much for spending your time with us and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you next week. You too, Curtis, and everybody else. And Smarshy, I know she's not here anymore, but she always is awesome to have.
They said, what happens when the sun stops shining and the river stops flowing? What happens then? That's what someone's comment is, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I don't want to see that day.
Yeah. That's why we got to work together.
Yep. That's why Indigenous rights matter, and protecting Indigenous rights protects rights for all of us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good night, everybody.
All right.
I wish you all the best, and I'll see you in a week.
All right.
Take care.